The best of Money Matters. The Big Story.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Hongbin Jeong. The Vatican will be electing a new pope as 133 cardinals gather in the Sistine Chapel following the passing of Pope Francis. Now, this conclave comes as a critical time for the Catholic Church, as the cardinals will not only choose a successor, but also determine the future direction of an institution that holds immense spiritual and moral authority worldwide. So what will the process be like in electing the new pope, and what factors will influence the decision in such a critical moment for the Catholic Church? Well, joining us today to answer these questions is Dr. Michel Chambon, who is the research fellow at the National University of Singapore. Hi, Dr. Chambon. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Doctor. The Vatican is once again at the center of global attention as 133 cardinals gather behind the closed doors of the Sistine Chapel to elect a new pope. To start off, what is the conclave process, actually like? What happens behind those closed doors, and why is secrecy such a central part of it?
Well, indeed, the whole process started immediately after the death of the Pope, so 2 weeks ago. And for 2 weeks, it was more a semi-public conversation when cardinals every day had at least a 3-hour meeting to discuss among them and assess the situation of the church and of the world. Today, they're moving to the second phase, which means that after the Mass, those below 80-year-old will be locked into a chapel, not anymore into a meeting room, but into a chapel and in silence to pray and vote for who they consider as the best fit to be the next pope. So the conclave is more like a spiritual retreat, exercise of prayer to discern and reveal who the Pope is, the Pope who is already among them, and that they work with the Holy Spirit to reveal it. So it may appear a bit strange from the outside, but it's really a religious exercise.
Well, this conclave is described as the most geographically diverse in history, with cardinals from 70 different countries. So, Doctor, how might this diversity influence the outcome, and what does it say about the future of the Catholic Church?
Well, this diversity is the first time that there is equal number of cardinals from the global south and the global north. It truly shows how the Catholic Church became a global, universal institution, and the Church has embraced that reality into its highest level of governance. So yes, the Catholic Church is now less Eurocentric, and we are seeing a truly global institution emerging right in front of us.
Do you expect Pope Francis's, progressive legacy to shape the election of his successor, or is there likely to be a push toward more traditional leadership?
So a number of theologians, and including myself, consider Pope Francis to not be a conservative or a progressist, but we describe him as an integralist, integral. He did not give up on any dimension of social, political, and religious life. He refused to be some kind of, narrow mind, obsessed with sexual norms or Latin Mass. So he really challenged the entire church to open up and engage with all the parts of our life. So think about climate change, think about migration, think about ecology, think about interreligious dimensions. So, and it appeared that during the 12 years of his papacy, he has created 108 cardinals out of the 133. So for sure, his integral approach will deeply influence the ways in which the cardinals today and tomorrow will vote for a successor.
Okay. Well, Pope Francis had appointed cardinals from places like South Sudan, Haiti, and Myanmar, regions with small Catholic populations. Some critics, though, pointed out that cardinals from newer regions may lack the institutional experience of those from long-established church centers. In your view, Doctor, was this primarily a symbolic gesture or part of a deeper theological vision to decentralize church authority? And should this shift be seen as a weakness, or could it mark a meaningful move away from the current leadership style?
So definitely Pope Francis has thought important to acknowledge and integrate the truly universal dimension of the Catholic Church today. So, of course, for people who prefer to emphasize on the administrative nature of the Church, they are concerned by all those new cardinals coming from various regions of the world that are perceived from a Eurocentric perspective more as a peripheries. But it is not just an administrative issue, it's a theological one, that the Catholic Church, which believe in one unique universal God, cannot neglect any civilization, any society, any political and religious tradition. And this is why I believe that Pope Francis has decided to brought representatives from all corners of the world.
Well, there's also speculation about blocs forming, like Asian cardinals voting together. Do such alliances play an integral part into the voting process, or has this always been a trend?
So it's been always a trend, but usually not really regionals. Of course, the cardinals in Asia know each other a bit more. It doesn't mean that they are all on the same line or they have the same sensibilities and priorities. Indeed, not at all. I worked with a number of them and I can testify they are extremely diverse. Some of them are very approachable and engage with all kinds of social issues, when others are more focused on sexual norms and liturgical matters. So you have a huge diversity. They have also internal networks, such as when they belong to religious orders. You can think about the Jesuits, the Franciscans. So you always have subgroups based on religious belonging, on ideologies, on tempers, and that also the process works. There are different geographies of those cardinal communities.
But we're seeing a clear divide from the church. I mean, some cardinals are calling for a return to older traditions, while others want to build on Francis's reforms. Added to that are calls for a more predictable and measured pontificate. What does this tension reveal about the church? Are we seeing the church at a crossroad or even on the verge of an ideological split?
No, not at all. What does that reveal is that the church is well alive. Of course, you have some monomaniac who complain and scream and cry. Even here in Asia, we have a few. But fundamentally, the church is on the move. And the integral approach of Pope Francis is going to stay.
But based on these comments, Doctor, do you see this as a critique of Pope Francis's leadership style or more of a response to the internal divisions his papacy has stirred?
I will say it's a response to the creative tensions and challenges that his papacy has generated. Not divisions, but challenges. Pope Francis was never satisfied with, how to say, the current situation. How can we be satisfied with the current situation? And was always creative to question and push forward a number of practices and habits and customs within the church. Of course, you have a few people who complain, who are tired, who question a set of priorities of Pope Francis.
Right.
But I wouldn't see that as divisions or of mere oppositions. It's a natural process of engagement, I will say.
Okay. Well, Cardinal Jean-Paul Vesco spoke about the need for a so-called pastor pope. What does he exactly mean by this, Doctor?
Well, again, this pastor notion is again an idea of taking care of the whole group and not be the chief of a tribe or of a clan, to not be just a diplomat or just be a defender of the truth and of some medieval norms, but to care for the whole humankind. So a pastor, not just a defender of one aspect.
Right. Well, Doctor, there has been much speculation about, potential candidates to succeed Pope Francis, with Cardinals Pietro Parolin of Italy and Luis Antonio Gokim Tagle of the Philippines being the most frequently mentioned. However, as we've seen in past conclaves here, predictions about who will emerge as Pope can often prove inaccurate, as evidenced by the unexpected selection of Pope Francis back in 2013. So, Doctor, why have these two candidates emerged much as the ones mentioned the most. And with the conclave being unpredictable, do you think this time there's a possibility that one of them could be the next pope?
So those two names, Cardinal Parolin and Cardinal Tagle, are top officials of the Vatican. One is a top diplomat and has achieved a real progress with China, but on other diplomatic relationships around the world. And the other one was the head of the Dicastery for Evangelization, and for some time he was the head of Caritas Internationalis, so with a huge exposure. So on one hand, it's normal that they have attracted attention. On the other hand, I will also say that these massive media attentions show also how a number of journalists have no understanding on how the Catholic Church works, I'm sorry to say that, and focus on the top, most visible, obvious ones, and that's it. So as you mentioned, it's very hard to predict who will come out of the conclave as a pope, but we will know in a few days whether I'm right or wrong, but I really don't see those two coming out as a pope. But maybe I will be wrong.
Right. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, before we let you go here, Dr. Chambon, in your view, what kind of leadership or qualities are they likely seeking in this moment, especially after Francis's strong morale and pastoral presence?
Well, based on what I get, I think that a number of cardinals are looking for this kind of figure who will not just focus and reduce everything to one issue. But how do we take the world as a complex reality where everything is intertwined? Pope Francis has been very strong showing on how ecology, for instance, and climate change should be at the heart of the theological concern of the Church. The way we care for creation is a matter of faith. So this pastoral presence, as you say, is something important for the cardinals. It is this kind of leadership, someone who is able to care for all that they are looking for today, I think.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that great perspective and insights. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. That was Dr. Michel Chambon, who is the research fellow at the National University of Singapore. This has been The Big Story with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.